at night with Lance, Cassidy, Mark, Rick, our new director, Saint. JD is fine. We're back after a 2-month hiatus, but JD had to go down to Texas to help care for his mom. And she's doing fine. JD is doing fine, doing a lot of gigs down in Texas. If you're out in the McAllen area, look up JD Mata. He's playing lots of venues. And a lot's happened in the last 2 months. I think top of everybody's mind is the war. Now, Lance, we talked a couple days ago, and you think the war is going pretty well, right?
Pretty is an understatement.
Okay. And so when I talked with Lance, there's going to be probably lots of yelling, but I wanted to talk with Lance about the stuff that we might believe in common, because there's plenty of stuff that we don't. And let me just say that, liberals, of which I am one, are saying the war is a freaking disaster. But I'm saying that it's too early to tell, really, that if you're looking for parallels, and I think everybody is, you can look at the Iraq War Part 2 in 2003, where the Iraqi military collapsed 26 days into a ground war, into a massive invasion. And there was low morale in the Iraqi military, and they just gave up after less than 4 weeks. And in this war, there hasn't even, if we're going to have a ground war, that hasn't even begun. It's only been, for the most part, bombing, the U.S. blowing shit up from the air. Or I guess firing missiles from, I don't know, ships and stuff. But anyway, like no ground troops. So it's hard to say if the Iranian regime would collapse, after a little bit of a ground war, because we haven't done any of a ground war yet. Now, Iran has been invaded. Back in 1980, Iraq invaded them with 200,000 troops, 2,800 tanks, 380 jets. They repelled that. It didn't make them fall, even though at that point the regime was less than a year old. So there you go. Lance?
All right, I'm going to take 4 minutes.
No, because I didn't take 4 minutes.
You just did. All right, you know what? I'm going to take 4 minutes. I'm very calm. All right, so here's a situation that I think is most fascinating about all this, and that is that the Democrats have managed to brainwash their followers so effectively that they could literally tell people that the sky was green and they'd believe it. This is the greatest military exhibition in history. I mean, you'd have to go back to the Muslim siege of Malta to find a greater military miracle, or some of the astounding feats of Alexander, or Charles Martel when he defeated not Charles Martel. I was going to say when he defeated the Muslims in France, but it's actually a greater military victory in terms of odds, was when Jan Sobieski, the king of Poland, defeated 80,000 Turks to lift the siege of Vienna. All that to say that it would be extremely hard to find a military victory so complete, so one-sided in the US's favor. You couldn't possibly. I worship Trump, and I had no idea that we would be able to have such an easy victory. And it was absolute perfection. And so what has happened now is the Democrats are on full alert because they have to keep the brainwashing going. So Rick is being fed a steady stream of doubts and fears. And because I guess he doesn't know much history, he thinks that's normal. Like, oh yeah, things could go bad. I mean, wow, Iran was invaded before, and things didn't work out for the Iraqis. In other words, they're giving him enough facts that he can sort of verify.
Nobody gave me those facts. I looked it up myself. Nobody
All right,
pointed
all
me
right,
in that.
all right. Still have 45 seconds.
Wait, in a brief pause, what was the intention of why they're going to war?
I'm not finished. So 45 seconds. So, all right, fine. You both derailed me. We can change. Do you want me to deal with her question?
Yeah, because okay, so
What is their outcome?
The outcome is there are two outcomes. The first is that Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. That's number one. Number two, in my opinion, Iran should never again be a regional power militarily. And number three, although nobody says it, we need to have a new regime there. And this will help overthrow the Iranian regime. And there are a variety of ways that that's going to happen, but it's not up to me how it happens. I can name the variety of ways. Either we make a deal and leave, and the Iranian people, after we arm them, overthrow their regime, or we arm them while we're there and help them overthrow their regime. There is a small possibility that the regime stays in power, but are basically at our beck and call. We basically tell them exactly what to do, which is what we're doing with Venezuela. But that doesn't satisfy me, the Israelis, or the Arabs.
Right. So you've used your 4 minutes. So let's talk about something we agree on. We both agree that the vast majority of Iranians loathe the regime. Whether there are.
Yeah, we agree.
That you say 95% of Iranians hate the regime. The statistics I saw were 80%. Either way, it's a vast majority. Probably even a majority of Muslims dislike the brand of Muslim of this repressive. Okay, but I asked AI, and I know AI is not entitled. Anyway, why aren't the people of Iran rebelling right now? Because they were rebelling.
You could ask Lance. I know more than AI.
No, you got to let me give a couple numbers first.
Okay.
So you've got the IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard Corps, which is the internal repressive police. It's 150,000 members. These are the people who shoot you in the street when you protest the regime, the people who arrest you when you don't wear head covering and then execute you or torture you, and so you got them. Then you have a regular military of 610,000 troops and reserves of 350,000. So the Iranian Navy, the U.S. has blown that up. I assume they fucked up the Air Force pretty bad too. but they still have a ton of soldiers. According to what list you look at, either the 7th or the 8th largest military in the world. So you don't make also Tehran is more than 300 miles away. Tehran is a city of 10 million people, and it's the seat of government. And it's more than 300 miles away from where we would invade from if we did a ground invasion. So I don't see getting this done without a big old ground invasion with, at the very least, many tens of thousands of US troops.
All right. I'm going to respond. So there are two things going on right now. The first is that we're working on trying to get the army to defect and disband on its own through demoralization. And we're working on arming the population. So if the army, if those 600,000 men, say they manage to muster 200,000, 300,000, and they decide to go to war with the Iranian people, they'd have to come out into the open where we would destroy them from the air. Then but the Iranian people, if they were armed, we've already got Kurds fully armed up. So
how many Kurds?
I don't know the number of the Kurdish army, but I know that it's fully armed and that it will be extremely effective. So if all we're trying to do is to mop up ground soldiers, as I explained to you last time we spoke, ground soldiers are helpless against air power. It's been this way since World War II. So they don't have a chance. And the idea that we're somehow going to send in thousands of American foot soldiers to be slaughtered by fanatical Iranian Shiites, no, it's not going to happen. Nobody needs that. And it just isn't, nobody's stupid enough to try that. What will happen is as I say, their own people. One of the beauties of this particular war is that when the people of the country are almost entirely on your side, then it's really easy to topple the government. So I see no way that this government is going to survive. They use military force to survive, and that's being taken away from them. So I don't think Trump would ever make a deal that would somehow keep them alive. Even if he says he's going to, even if he says, fine, you stay in power, just, be cooperative in a variety of ways. Secretly, the Israelis and the Americans are going to be working to topple that government. Now, nobody told me this. I'm guessing, but my guesses have been accurate since we started these shows. That's all I have to say.
Okay, so insider reports reported by the New York Times talk about how this war came to be, which is Netanyahu goes to the White House and sits in the Situation Room with Trump for 2 hours and makes the case that it will be relatively easy to topple the regime. And this was on February 11th. Trump has this year.
Oh, okay.
Trump has meetings with his cabinet for the next couple weeks and decides to go ahead with it. And begins the aerial attacks on February 28th. So one of my issues is that Netanyahu, according to what I read, often oversells things, right? He paints a rosier picture. And my issue is with Hegseth's war planning abilities. So Hegseth only made it to major, and the war planners are generally multiple star generals. And he was far from that. So being in the military is a continuing education and training program. You have 2 to 4 years to advance in rank, or else you're mustered out. My brother made it to lieutenant colonel and then couldn't make it to colonel and had to retire after a 30-year military career. Um, so the 2, 3, 4-star generals are people who, you go to war college. You have a choice of colleges to go through. You have to take classes in military stuff. Um, what continually while you're, unless you're, on assignment in some other, you have to take courses if you want to advance in rank. And I don't think that Hegseth ever wanted to advance in rank because he didn't take any of the courses that would have qualified him to move up to become a colonel. He was in the military off and on for 10 years. The war planners, the generals, in for 25 to 30 years. So 78% of majors make it to second lieutenant. Half a second lieutenants make it, I'm sorry, not second lieutenant, make it to lieutenant colonel, 78%. Then half of those make it to full colonel. Then 3 to 5% of those make it to 1-star general. And Hegseth, I don't think would have even made it to lieutenant colonel because he didn't have he wasn't taking the requisite courses. He hadn't put himself on a leadership track by consistently staying in the military. He was bouncing in and out between the National Guard, active military, and then private industry. He'd been fired. He headed 2 veterans organizations, and he'd been fired from both for bad leadership. And he paid 50 grand to a woman who accused him of sexually assaulting her in a hot tub. None of this set him up to advance in rank. And he doesn't, and he's fired 20 generals and admirals. And he's not Stalin exactly. Stalin executed thousands of high-ranking military personnel because he was paranoid in the 30s, which made Russia very unprepared.
Rick, it's been almost 4 minutes.
All
You
right,
wanna
well,
wind this up?
hold on, I'm almost done. So, like, it's not like what Stalin did, but it's not like Stalin did. That Hegseth has fired some of his highest ranking generals, and it doesn't put him in a position to know what he's doing. And kind of ditto for Trump. There have been civilian secretaries of defense, but those civilians, the most people under Hegseth's command were at the platoon level when he was a lieutenant. So the most he's ever commanded before now was 30 to 40 people.
Okay.
Hold on, one last sentence.
Wait, I want to say something too before.
Okay, one last sentence. Sorry. Okay, and then you. The civilian secretaries of defense came from industry where they had leadership positions. All right, there you go.
My one thing I just want to say out of everything is, like, why the hell should anyone trust Benjamin Netanyahu? Because he just fucking wiped out a full land. Which it's like when he was attacking this group that's formed itself and called them terrorists when really they're just a protection group trying to protect themselves from the atrocities of the people of Israel and the regime that Israel had to grab land. And so now a whole freaking, they like just caused a genocide.
Okay, so I'll let
Rick,
Lance go, but
Rick,
I want to
all
say
right.
you're up.
If they were just getting, wait, before we, no, I need to finish my
Okay,
talk,
okay.
because if it was just, they were just getting the people, I forgot the name of the group. I can't think of it.
Hamas.
Yeah, Hamas. If they were just after Hamas, then they could have done it in a way that was strategic, where it didn't wipe out a full totality of people. They have like negative intentions. That is, it goes way back to the beginning of time of imperialism and freaking like how even America was created and how the U.S. government is infiltrating all these different countries since the beginning of the U.S., starting from the European what's it called, revolution a long time ago. This is like nothing new. It's literally the works of imperialism and like having negative intentions and trying to, like, him. I understand that Iran's regime needs to go down, but I feel like Benjamin Netanyahu or whatever is not someone to trust. And I feel like for some reason the US must be like backed against a corner to be under that much control of Israel. And like, I literally had a dream about this last night. Israel could easily just turn on the US just like it has any other country too. So like, yeah, we're basically Israel's little bitch.
Okay, so before Lance goes, I just want to say one quick thing. You're up against two old Jews. Lance and I have a combined age of 130. So, and though I'm a lib and Lance is an insane Trumper.
I am of Jewish descent.
All right. Well, anyway, there are lots of points where both of us are gonna disagree with what you said. But Lance, you go ahead, and then I'll mop up.
You're Jewish?
Mm-hmm. Schneider.
I thought you were German.
Ashkenazi. A little bit of German and
Right.
Ashkenazi.
Fine. Well, okay, Cassidy, let's establish some guidelines here, okay? And this is not coming out of my time. You have to stay with the same conversation that we're having. So don't change the subject. So just
That's
listen.
in the subject.
Yeah, I
know.
agree with Cassidy. It's in the subject.
Okay, but then okay. When we're done talking about Hegseth, which is what Rick brought up,
Yeah.
then we can switch to any subject you want. But if we always have to be derailed into a different subject, then we won't have a cohesive conversation.
All right, point given. We'll start with Hegseth and then we'll move on to Netanyahu.
Okay. So one.
I feel like that's just some like control thing because you're not liking what I'm saying.
No, I love what you're saying. We can argue after we're done talking about that subject we were talking about before.
But my piece was it was like tying the subjects together of like, why the fuck are we still like listening to this government that literally we shouldn't even trust any of the government. That's because for eons and eons, it's put us in religious battles over profit and abandoning each other as a human society. And then now we want to stay on topic when literally the topic's pointless because it's like we've just been for eons and eons going into these religious wars, abandon each other because one person's religious views are better than the other and they're serving this righteous God that's better than the other, and we're going to grab land and profit, and then we're going to have these wars and go against each other. It's all, to me, just bullshit.
All right, but let's take care of Hegseth. Lance is going to talk about him for.
I don't even want to talk about this stuff anymore because I think it's bullshit.
But we'll get to what you think is bullshit. Just let's do Hegseth, and then we'll spend the rest of this entire episode on Netanyahu and Israel and the whole freaking thing.
All right. First of all, Rick, since Hegseth took over, you keep going on about his qualifications, which is illogical to me. He was brought on because he had middle rank in the military, but mostly because he was an expert on military reform. He wrote a book, which you didn't read, on how to reform the Defense Department, which made him a good choice if you want to reform the Defense Department. Now, as far as his performance goes, he has increased the recruiting was a big problem. We didn't have enough people to join the military. Now we've got dynamic recruiting. We've got huge numbers of people wanting to join the military. Secondly, he has been pledged, he's been getting rid of DEI in the military, where people were being advanced because they were the right color or because they were leftist. Third, the reason that he's getting rid of generals right now is because the rumor is, I don't have proof, but those in the know are saying that these generals are not being cooperative. They have different political goals than the president, and most of them were put in charge by Biden. So if you are the new president and the old generals from the previous president don't want to go along with your views about what to do, then they have to be removed. It has nothing to do with Stalin. Finally, the most important thing I kept for last, and that is that we've never had this level of success militarily. I mean, we wiped out Maduro's regime in an hour and a half. We wiped out the main nuclear threats at Fordham with the operation from the B-2s a few months ago. And now we've literally destroyed a medium-sized military power with 95 million people and a massive military that Iran could have beaten a country like Britain. Iran had a very, very powerful military, and we crushed it with the loss of 13 men. We only lost 2 planes, and they were shot down by our allies accidentally. So you can't possibly get a better record than Hegseth has given us. It is virtually impossible. So to carpet him and nip at his heels like a little bitch is reprehensible, and it's illogical for a man of your intellect.
Yeah, all right. So Maduro's VP is still in charge of Venezuela. So let's grant, and I don't know if Hegseth, like you say, he's an expert on military reform. So fine, I'll give you that, even though I don't know if it's accurate. You know, he's a Fox News guy. Let's see what else. Biden did not appoint the generals. The military is pretty much a meritocracy. So Hegseth has been holding back blacks and women who were qualified for promotion. And as I said earlier, you have to show that you have the stuff. Only 3 to 5% of colonels get to advance to 1-star general. So these people who are up for promotion have 25 to 30 years of solid service, are highly qualified in a huge, complicated organization. And so only 29% of the people in America are white guys. And here you have Hegseth trying to turn it into a white guy fucking military, which ignores the 71% of the talent that's already in the military. So the nuclear material, Iran still has somewhere 1,000 pounds of 60% enriched uranium. I assume that Trump is telling the truth, that it's buried in after the bombing of last July. though it's not necessarily easy to find uranium. If it's in a container and that container is thick lead, then you're not going to detect a radiation signature. If you've popped open the containers and it's scattered, then you can detect radiation. I don't know. I've heard people on both sides seem to indicate that we can find the uranium, but as of now, it's still with Iran. But to reiterate, I'm not sure that Hegseth is a war planner. I mean, I doubt that he fucking is, because they haven't been able to. They have these general objectives, but they haven't been able to convince the American public of those objectives. The war is 15 points underwater. 54% disapprove, 39% approve. Trump's approval is the lowest of any president at this point, 15 months into a presidency, since they began polling. It's so low that Gallup, who started polling in 1940, has decided to go out of the presidential approval polling business because they don't want to get persecuted by frickin' Trump because his numbers are so fucking low.
The reason Gallup didn't went out of the presidential polling business was that they were wrong so many times. I remember them stopping doing that a few years ago. So
they stopped 2 months ago.
No, but they stopped predicting who was going to be president after 2016.
Yeah, polling isn't predicted.
Yeah, but see, by the pettiness and race baiting of my opponent a minute ago, the viewer can see that Rick really doesn't have an argument.
The army is a freaking meritocracy. The people that he held back for being blacks and women were held back for bullshit.
That's what Democrats do. They race bait, and it's pathetic. I think in a perfect world where my opponent was not brainwashed and not race baiting, he would come in here excited and happy because Iran was being defeated with hardly any loss of life, and they weren't going to be able to shoot nuclear bombs at our country. And instead, Rick's got all these pathetic objections. He's crying racism. He's saying that President Trump is unpopular. You know, I don't care if I'm the last man on earth that thinks that this was a good idea. Everything is going beautifully, better than I could possibly have hoped for, miraculously. If you're reading some poll that says that Americans hate Trump and that the war is, they aren't convinced that the war is going well, well, why don't you wise up? Why don't you just say, analyzing it logically, the war is going fantastic, and not worry about what the Democrats tell you the polls are showing. The Democrats are lying to you, Rick. They're lying about how the war is going. They're lying to you about how the American people feel about it. And even if the American people were against it, they're wrong.
Who's lying? The pollsters? Because
Gallup is notoriously Democrat propaganda.
Yeah, so but I'm not relying on Gallup. I'm relying on poll aggregators.
You know what? It only means that Democrats have been able to confuse more people like yourself. I don't care that the Democrats have been able to say that the greatest military victory in modern history is actually a defeat. That's what they've done. And you come in here, instead of being elated, you come in here with all these complaints. It's pathetic. It's sad. That's what really hurts my heart. That's what makes me angry. That when we finally have a situation where America is getting what it needs, where the world is going to be free of an evil repressive regime that will no longer be able to hurt anybody else or nuke any of our capitals or destroy Israel. Now that we finally have that working out, Rick has objections.
Yeah,
He's got
because
some
there's
complaints.
no
There's racism. There's racism, says Rick. Maybe
there's
some,
no guarantee that the regime falls.
okay. Last time we had a disagreement, I said that one of us had to suck the other person's cock if Trump didn't attack Iran. And guess what? They attacked Iran. Then I said we would defeat Iran. They did. Now,
We're
this
still
regime,
in the
this regime is going
Iran
to
is
fall.
not defeat. All right, so
Cocksucking or not, this regime is going to fall.
it might. When
right.
there were street protests, I gave it a 35% chance, which was being nice to you, but I'll still give it that 35% chance that it falls by the end of the year.
Thanks. Now,
all right, now let's talk about Netanyahu. Hold on.
Yeah,
Let's
okay.
go back to Cassidy.
That's what I
Out of
said.
deference to Cassidy, let's
Yeah.
talk about Netanyahu.
Okay.
So I think Netanyahu is a piece of shit. His trial for corruption resumed today, Sunday. He like Trump has multiple motivations for what he does, including personal reasons. Trump likes to do shit to distract from the Epstein files. Netanyahu likes to do stuff to keep himself in power and avoid prosecution for corruption. Now that's
And grab land.
all right.
and
So,
wipe out a
but okay, you
whole
said some
culture.
stuff where so Hamas initially invaded Israel, killed 1,600 people, Lance, 1,200.
1,200.
1,200, took 200 people hostage, eventually killed almost all of them.
Oh, yeah, you're right. So it would be more than 1,200.
All right. So Hamas attacked Israel first. Then Israel goes in.
But
and
no,
hold
at
on,
the
wait.
very beginning, actually, that they were like protecting themselves from the beginning of time. And this is like, it's like if you could compare it to America, it's like how America came to be colonized and the Native Americans protecting themselves from colonization.
All right. So the native Hamas and the Native Americans are not the same thing.
Not Hamas, but the Palestinian.
All right, but the Palestinians have been the bitches of terrible leadership since at least 1947, when Israel became a nation and Palestine voted not to become a nation because they were pissed because Israel had glommed a ton of their land. So, but the deal is Hamas, they're bad guys. They're not good guys. And it's been pointed out to me. So Israel has been bombing the shit out of them for 2.5 years now. And they've killed close to 70,000 Palestinians, which is about more than 3% of their population, which is a ton of people, especially since about half of those dead, more than half, are non-combatants. They're non-Hamas.
A lot of them were children.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so let's just for the sake of ease of discussion, let's say half are women and children. It's been pointed out to me by another old Jew, not Lance, that if you look at the statistics of what it takes when a guerrilla force like Hamas is embedded in the general population, it's doing pretty well, even though it looks horrible to us to only kill one civilian for every combatant. So yeah, it looks like shit. And yeah, Israel has overwhelming force. Hamas has 20,000, 25,000 troops. Israel has 300,000. They have all the firepower. And yeah, they're blowing up a bunch of shit, hospitals and, food convoys. They've killed more than 200 journalists.
If you watched stuff like real documentary of boots on the ground, people going over there to do nursing or doctoring, it's horrific, actually.
Yeah, a lot of innocents
and then I don't know if you guys remember that thing that Trump posted on his Instagram of turning what Gaza and Palestine was into this massive, it was
beachfront resort.
Yeah. So that should show you their intentions. And it's very similar to everything that's been going on for eons, and history is repeating itself in such a way that it's like, I'm like, yeah, it's the perpetual cycle of imperialism.
Well, let's talk about
and, like, the
another
monster
place.
and the beast that keeps growing, that literally is convincing us that the religious beliefs and the propaganda of politics is better than man. Better
But
than our
let's
fellow
talk about
human beings.
specific situation. Let's talk about another country that Israel's bombing the shit out of, which is Lebanon to the north, which is controlled by Hezbollah. And Israel is bombing the shit out of that, killing a lot of Hezbollah, killing a lot of civilians along with it, because it's the same setup where Hezbollah is taken over the country, is embedded among the general population. And I was talking to somebody from that region, and I asked, does Israel have a chance of really eradicating Hezbollah? And they said no, that there's no other form of leadership. It's a mafia state. And the people of Lebanon have no way of ousting Hezbollah and forming a replacement
Are you
government.
on break?
So,
Oh, yeah.
so the bombing will go on, and civilians and Hezbollah will continue to get killed, and it likely won't change anything. Possibly if the regime falls in Iran, because Iran supports the Houthi, Hamas, Hezbollah, maybe that would reduce the support enough that something could be done. But I don't know, because I'm ignorant about the whole fucking thing.
I watched this activist poet kind of speak to like the creation of Hamas, and it's like, it's kind of like, imagine if it's like the native people of this land, America, as their culture was being wiped out, and then they formed something against the US government that they actually were they were welcoming them in, like, as America was starting, they were welcoming people in, and then all of a sudden the people started wiping out the Native Americans, trying to take over the land and force them to, like, sign these peace treaties that they lied on.
Yeah, we
also convinced, like, all the slavery from other countries, like, being shipped over here, and then, like, oh my God.
All right. Okay. So the
literally
Native Americans were pretty good natured
So it's like
until
saying-
it was
it's like
too late.
If we created a group of people, like, because of that, or the natives created a group of people because of that are against the US government, and not saying they're not like actual terrorists, but it's like,
Yeah, but
we
Hamas are
implanted-
actual terrorists. They're actual terrorists.
because they're just protecting themselves from
They're
a
not just
history
protecting
that was
themselves. They're
repeating itself.
they're bad guys doing bad things and saying they're protecting Gaza. All right, Lance, you want to?
But also, okay, so also I heard something that before the attack from Hamas went to Israel, I heard that, like, they let them know exactly what was going to happen. So, like, it's almost like something, there's like so many facts that I feel like we don't actually all have, of like what the heck is actually
Yeah, well, okay, so
going on.
Israel dropped the ball with regard to intel. They did bad intel. It was like 9/11, where we had plenty of signs and some specific, like an FBI agent found out that a bunch of Saudis were going to US flight schools and training to fly planes, but not to take off or land. And she's like, she told her boss, and then her boss, it got lost somewhere. Somebody blew her off. And, that there were two female intel officers, Israeli intel officers, who said this shit is coming, and they were blown off too. So yeah, similarities. How long we've been going? It seems like we should.
It's been 45 minutes and everything like that. So I
All
just
right,
popped
so
in.
it's time for Mark. Unless Lance, you want to say something quick, or you want to wait till the next episode?
It's going to take me a long time to unpack.
All right, so let's go to Mark. Mark, you have stuff for us?
Yeah, there's a major event that was going on, one in North
We
Carolina.
need you louder.
Louder.
I said there's a major event going on this weekend or this week, and I wanted to hear y'all's thoughts about it. And then there was a major event that was taking place here in North Carolina, and I'll tell you about both of those and hear your thoughts about both of them. But I'll get to the North Carolina one. Today was North Carolina Pint Day, so they had artists making a lot of different types of cups and glasses. I think they were mostly glasses and everything like that. So they were celebrating the craft beer industry, and I know that craft beer and craft wines are big in California as well. So, Cassidy, before I get to the other topic, is there any particular craft beer or craft wine that you're a big fan of? Because we've got tons of them here and everything. We've got everything from Hillside Bourbon to Southern Wicked to a number of others that are in the craft industry and everything like that. So I didn't know if there's any particular craft alcohol or craft drink that you really liked.
Oh man, I actually don't drink. So I'm not like I wish I knew. I have enjoyed wine in the past, but I'm not. Throughout my life, I've not drank more than drank. So.
All right, so I have some. I come from Boulder, Colorado, which
Yes.
is one of the hotbeds, the homes of craft beer. But I don't like beer. So Adam Carolla, more of a hero to Lance now than me now, probably because Carolla's gotten, pretty conservative, but still, I think a genius, he's got a theory of the yummy phase, that real men grow up and learn to appreciate stuff that tastes bad. Black coffee, brown liquor, beer, cigars, and that baby men such as myself, little liberal baby men, never outgrow the yummy phase where we need stuff that tastes like chocolate candy. I like Bailey's Irish Cream, cigars. Like when I was 3, my dad had me bite on a cigar that he'd made all spitty, and that was designed to make sure that I never smoked, and that it worked. Brown liquor is disgusting. So yeah, I never got out of the yummy phase. So I don't like beer
What
unless
about
you
you?
mix it with lemonade. There's a thing called a shandy that's like an Arnold Palmer but with beer. I like that because it tastes good.
What about you, Lance? And then we'll get to the
Lance?
other big. Then I'll get to the other big issue, and then I'll get out of here. But Lance, what about yourself on the beer and wine? Any craft beers or wines that you really like?
No, I have to say, I guess Rick and I are very much alike. I like Bailey's. I like uh, Grand Marnier. I like all those things, except that as I've gotten older, um, I never drank particularly ever in my life, and now I'm even more against it. And even though I've got a bottle of Grand Marnier that somebody gave me, I can never think of a good reason to drink it that would offset the damage that it would do to my body.
Yeah,
Now, the funny thing about it is that the older I get, the more I realize that drinking is very destructive to your body. And in the past, I used to think, well, drinking in moderation is probably no big deal. But no, no, I think it really sucks. And I know people that have died. I know a lot of alcoholics. Um, and not only do you get it, a lot of people think, well, I'm not an alcoholic. What difference does it make? Well, when you get to be older and you start getting cancer, you start wondering, well, why did I get this cancer? Was it my lifestyle? Was it drinking? Was it lack of exercise? Was it eating garbage? And I've decided not to take any chances. I've decided that I despise alcohol, not because it's had any effect on my health, but I see what goes on to the people around me.
In college, drinking is a chore. To drink enough to get fucked up is you have to drink a lot. And I didn't like drinking that much. I liked getting so fucked up that you could become a jackass. and just do and say whatever. And like I saw guys get drunk and then they'd say stupid shit to women. And if the women were drunk, they might end up making out with them. And I decided at parties to that I could be a jackass without being drunk. So I just went to parties and pretended to be drunk. And it worked at least once. A sorority girl took me home, and we had sex under the piano in her sorority house.
Well, I
But
did something
I was
similar.
wait,
I was
wait,
just
wait.
saying,
It didn't work out because at the time I was going to college and working 3 or 4 jobs, and I was very tired, and I fell asleep on top of her, which is not paying your sex partner a high compliment.
no, that's not a high
Is
compliment at
that
all. I did something similar. I went to a beer drinking school because Marquette is in Milwaukee, and I used to love, because my parents were wine drinkers, drinking wine since everybody else was drinking beer. So I was doing something to be a little bit different. And I'm sure you can relate to that, Cassidy. Sometimes you want to do things just to be different if you're in a certain crowd and everything like that. But the other thing I was going to get to really quickly, and then we can get to some commercials and everything like that, or PSAs, is there's a major, y'all talking about all the wars and what's going on in Israel, but there's a major thing that a lot of people were celebrating, including, I think, some young people. But I was just wondering y'all's reaction to the Artemis mission and everything like that, because Artemis has landed and all in that line, and some people are celebrating. It was a very mixed crew and everything like that. I think there were a couple of, there's at least one woman, and I know there was one African American, because that whole DEI thing and everything like that. But definitely they're saying that this is the first mission we've had on the other side of the moon, and the furthest we've been since 50 years ago, or more than 50 years ago. So I was wondering, one, Cassidy, if your young peers were excited by it, and then I want to hear from Lance and Rick their views about this moon mission.
I had no idea, but that's so weird because I had a dream about like a moon mission recently, so I must have been picking up on it.
So a couple crazy things. One is I don't think any of these 4 astronauts were even alive the last time we went to the moon. Also, this is Saturday Night Live's 51st season on the air. They came on in 75, I think.
Mhm.
And this is the first time they could do a weightless in space skit, because for its entire 50 years we haven't been back to the frickin' moon, which is a crazy, like, it speaks to a couple things. One is we've fallen in love with earthbound tech, that there's one smartphone for every person on earth, on average. We just started looking up our own assholes instead of out into space. It's kind of a ballless failure of, no, I'm not totally sold on space. I think that at this point in our technology that we don't have much to gain by like trying to build a settlement on the moon. But it's freaking crazy that we haven't been back to the moon since 1972.
Yeah, it was 72 and everything like that. Hey, Lance, there are some people, and I know your dad was a famous director, that thought that the first moon mission was a Hollywood stunt and everything like that. And I'm sure there'll be people that will claim it for this one as well. So I just wanted your take on this and your take on those conspiracy theorists that'll probably be like, nobody went to the moon. That was all a Hollywood set.
Well, first of all, I think that it's important that we continue space exploration because it helps humanity in subtle ways. It helps advance all technology. It helps the US militarily because it turns out that all wars in the future will have an element of space involved, either through space-based weapons, space-based espionage, developments in rocketry, and communications, et cetera, et cetera. As far as the need to explore, there are people that think that we can eventually have small colonies in space. And because I'm an artist, I think that doing things for the thrill of it is a good thing. I think doing things because they are grand and magnificent and interesting is a good reason to do things, even if the precise value of it can't be established at this time. As far as my father, he was a writer, and there are people that think that we didn't really go to space or land on the moon. I think they're very credulous and lack any credibility.
With that, let's go to commercial because unfortunately JD is 1,000 miles away and can't play us out.
No problem. So we'll go to commercial right now. So they
All
don't
right,
have to
see you back in a couple minutes.
Yeah, see you back in a couple of minutes.
We're back to Naked at Night with Saint and Cassidy and Mark and Lance and me. And we were discussing, frickin' Netanyahu.
I can start if you want.
And everybody had a turn except for Lance. And Saint knows some stuff if Saint wants to talk about it.
All right. So the first thing is that the reason that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict began, the Israeli-Arab conflict began, is because the Arabs were awarded, this was a territory that existed after the end of World War II. This territory was divided into 3 parts. 2 of the parts were given to the Arabs, and 1/3 of it, 30% of it or less, actually was given to the Jews. They all lived in the same area, and so the UN agreed that a new nation should be formed after the British left the area. And 1/3, as I said, it's very important to remember this, 1/3 was given to the Jews, 2/3 was given to the Arabs. The 2/3 that were given to the Arabs are now the nation of Jordan. The 1/3 that was given to the Jews is now Israel. The reason there's still a conflict is because the Arabs want Israel too. They never agreed to have 1/3 given to the Jews, even though there were thousands and thousands of Jews in that area. They wanted to keep the whole place to themselves. So in 1949, they invaded, 1948, all of the Arab countries invaded Israel, and Israel just barely survived by beating them back. That's the first thing that most leftists don't know. The second thing is that most people don't know that Gaza was Egypt. And the reason it's called Gaza right now is because Egypt didn't want it. It's an area that is of no value to them. And when the Israelis had to take it over militarily in 1967, they offered to give it back to the Egyptians, and the Egyptians said, nah, that's okay. You can just leave those people there. And so what happened was the Gaza Strip, which is a tiny, tiny little parcel of land, was occupied by Israel for about 30 years. And in 2005, they gave it to the Palestinians. The people that lived there decided that they wanted their own state. So Gaza became a Palestinian government, Palestinian people, and every single Jew in Gaza was expelled. They were actually taken out of Gaza. There were thousands of Jews that lived in Gaza. But the Israelis took these people and said, look, we want it to be pure Palestinian. We don't want to have to fight about it with anybody. So you're coming back to Israel. And against their will, they dismantled all the Jewish settlements in Gaza. So since 2005, Gaza is completely independent. Now,
All right. So our director.
I'm not finished.
But hold on. I just got to say, our director keeps shaking his head.
I am not finished.
All right.
After 2005, they were taken over. They deliberately elected Hamas. Hamas is a terrorist organization who has a charter. This charter, like their constitution, until very recently said every Jew on earth has to be killed because it says so in the Quran. So that was in their charter, and people started to read the Arabic and they got hip to it. So they took it out of their charter. But that was for the past 60 years. That's what they wanted to do. So now there wasn't anything wrong. They were living in Gaza, being able to live like animals under a vicious regime that was murdering people, throwing homosexuals off buildings to kill them, forcing women to be brutalized in a number of ways. There's having to wear veils, genital mutilation. God knows what they were up to. And things were, and the Gazans received the most financial aid of any people on earth. Imagine that. More people than the starving in Africa, more money than any other people on earth. You know what they did with the money? They kept it for themselves.
Hamas did. Yeah, Hamas did. Yeah, they kept billions of dollars.
I'm not finished. They kept it for themselves. That's why Hamas leaders have big mansions all over the world. And then they spent the rest of it to build weapons and defensive positions that they could use to attack Israel. So in 2024, I believe it is now, they attacked Israel and raped and murdered 1,200 people on October the 7th.
October
now that
2023.
Okay, 23. That doesn't bother Democrats, but I'm still a little miffed. And that's how the war got started.
All right, I want to hear from Saint. Saint has found many points of what you've said.
He's just fact-based.
Okay.
Oh, I wasn't fact-based.
No.
There's nuance. There's
Yeah. So
Uh-huh.
for one, Hamas has not been in power for 60 years. They've only existed since 1987. They came to power though because Netanyahu pushed to put them in power. This is why the leader of Israel died before too, because he was assassinated. And then Netanyahu came into power. He told his people and parliament or the Knesset that if we put Hamas in power, if Hamas is in power, that is the greatest thing to help us because we will have an enemy that is not palatable and we could constantly point to him. So, I'm paraphrasing. And so it's been proven that he pushed money and pushed the people towards electing him. The election happened in 2006 or 5 or whatever. And only, I think, 3% of the people who voted at that time are even alive today. So using that as a reason for what's going on, I'm not going to give any weight to that, but those are the steps in it. And then when you look at how when they had power over what they were doing after 2014 or something like that, they did not. When Israel pulled out the people that were there, those settlements were illegal. And the people who were living in those settlements were murdering Palestinians. Children, women, they will go into houses, shoot them dead. And there are plenty of reporters who have made it into parts of Gaza and the West Bank, because that's happening in the West Bank. Mm-hmm. If you are against October 7th and what came about from that, you got to ask yourself, then, if this is happening in Gaza, Why is it that in the West Bank, they are still going after people and murdering them? People in the West Bank had nothing to do with what happened there. And also with the creation of Palestine, well, Palestine has existed for a long time. The Palestinians were ethnic Jews at a lot of the Palestinians that live there today were living there thousands of years ago. They converted. Once the Ottoman Empire was started to and stuff, they converted a lot of people over for cheaper taxes and things like that. That's why there were still Jewish people living there, and there were Christians. And Christians are being murdered over there. And the Jews that were living there were being persecuted as well with what's going on right now. And so you have it to where this war did not start in 2023. And Egypt gave information to Israel that something was happening, something was being planned. They never did anything about it because the soldiers that would have been there at the music festival that was set up went to the West Bank to help with a siege that was going on there. So that's the largest reason of why there weren't any soldiers there to fight back. And also, it was seen that the numbers for the amount of people that were killed by Hamas in that event on October 7th, it's been proven there's been no evidence that rape was used in any large thing there. Maybe a few people were, but it wasn't used as a tactic on a large scale that day. That's just by what was reported in the newspaper.
All right, so
All right,
you
okay,
hold
you've
on,
had
hold on,
3
hold on. No, wait,
minutes,
wait, wait.
so,
Let me talk.
Yeah.
So hold on, wait. So you make a good point. The Palestinians and the Jews are genetically very close. If a let me make my point. If a Palestinian and a Jew have sex, and it's heterosexual sex, and it's not butt stuff or mouth stuff or hand stuff, they can often the lady of the pair can get pregnant.
Well, when you say a Jew, you have to realize that Judaism is a religion. So when Judaism went into Europe around, what was it, 400? It went in 400, but it took hold in large scale numbers around 500. 300, 500, yeah, 500. But Palestinians as a group of people in a region have never really moved out. This is
All right.
what
Well,
they-
let me extend this. Jews, like, often, if a Jew has sex with a person of many other races, a pregnancy can result, but not if the Jew wears a fedora, because nobody will fuck a guy wearing a fedora.
Okay, I want to just say one thing, just to pull it back on topic, because you looked really shocked. But before, when you were going to the bathroom, you had talked about like before Hamas's attack on October 7th, it was proven that Israel actually had more people captive than Hamas had captive. So like that was like a response from Hamas, because Israel had already poked the bear by having like a big attack that had already.
Hamas would not exist if not for the systematic oppression of the Palestinians since the 1940s, let's say.
And it's just like, if you want to understand systemic oppression, literally, we walk right outside. It's in our backyards. Like, it's literally how this society is created.
Well, there is an interesting occurrence that I've seen based on the history that I've read, where the Nazis came to the US, and that's where you see the famous Madison Square Garden saying whatever. That video was terrifying. But they came here to learn from our laws, the Jim Crow laws. And they implemented things that they learned from the Jim Crow laws in Germany to oppress gays, people of color, and people who espouse the Jewish faith. And so what they did, though, they said that there were some things that were being implemented in the South here that they were not going to do because they were too cruel. Now, I'm sure by the end of World War II, they put all that to the side, you know, because it ramped up. But then now you have the Israelis using what was done to them to the Palestinians, and then you have them training police from here in Israel, and then they come back here and do those tactics to people of color.
Yeah.
That's an interesting
Yeah,
secular.
all right. So all this is a bummer, and so I want to move on. But yeah, Hitler had quite a fondness for a lot of aspects of America. He loved cowboy and Indian stories, novels, and so. But I want to talk about another story, which is the Pink Panther. Lance's dad created the Pink Panther, and the most famous, incompetent hero in the history of movies. 11 movies, spin-off cartoons that ran for decades. If you ask Google or AI, name some famous incompetent movie characters, Inspector Clouseau is at the top of the list. And this strikes me as ironic because, Lance, you grew up in a household that was financed by incompetence. Your dad was great at portraying people who were kind of fish out of water or just like idiots. Like, didn't he get nominated for an Oscar for Operation Petticoat?
Yeah.
And doesn't Cary Grant end up in charge of a submarine full of ladies or some crap?
Yes.
So in that movie, Cary Grant is competent at one thing, but somehow ends up in a situation where he is not competent. And so your dad was like a master of incompetence. And here you are being rabidly supportive of one of the most incompetent presidential administrations in history. Oh, by the way, inflation is back. Gas is now more expensive than it was during 91% of the Biden administration. So under Biden, 4 years, gas was over $4 a gallon for 20 weeks, including 1 week where gas was over $5 a gallon. We'll see how long gas stays over $4 now. But for Trump to start a war 7 months before the midterms, hoping that Iran would tip over and give him a great victory that would save the House and the Senate for him, strikes me as Inspector Clouseau-ish. And yeah, he may keep the Senate, but the House is gone. The House, the Republicans can only afford to lose 2 seats, and they're predicted to lose 20.
Okay. The first thing I have to say is this. I don't know if we have a show long enough for me to argue with Rick, Cassidy, and Saint, but I just want to say that I think Saint's views are foolish and reprehensible. I
think you just described the history very factual.
No, it's not factual at all. I don't even know what he's trying to say other than Israel is bad and that there was no rape. He said that's another thing. There was no rape. Listen, let me tell you something. You know,
not use that as a military tactic.
wasn't used as he's making some fine distinctions there. Saint.
Mhm.
The
They also
reason
said
the
ladies
reason
were murdered.
the reason we know that these things happened is because the Palestinians were so proud of all the raping and the murdering of children and babies that they filmed it. And those films were on their cell phones, and we managed to get a hold of those films. They were reviewed by members of the United States Congress and by the UN, and they verified that, yes, they burned babies, they raped men and women. They raped every woman they could get a hold of, but they also raped men. They killed children in front of their parents. Then they killed the parents. And they were so proud of it that they made the videos because they wanted their friends and relatives to see what a great job they were doing.
But yet
I'm not
nobody
finished.
has been
I'm
able
not
to-
finished. I'm not finished. Yes, it was seen by the US Congress and the UN who verified this, along with the Israelis, but of course you don't believe them. So the point is that no, the films were not released to the general public. They were seen by by those senators and congressmen and presidents that were interested because they can't be released. They're so violent. And this, by the way, the hostages that they kept, they managed to keep hundreds of hostages from that day, less than 100, but they kept hostages who they raped. And we know that because when they were released, they said they were raped, if any of them lived. And most of them didn't live because they starved them to death. Now, the reason that that Israel has been forced to kill women and children, as you say, is because the Hamas, the Palestinians hide behind their own families. They hide.
Yeah, we already went over
No,
that.
no, no, but I think it's very important to reiterate because apparently it doesn't get through to people. According to the Geneva Convention, I'll make it brief, Rick, if an army hides among their civilians and doesn't wear military uniforms, that's why people wear military uniforms, so that the enemy can can determine who is military and who is a civilian. Well, the terrorists of Hamas deliberately wear civilian clothing and they hide, they position all their weapons and all their military installations among the schools, hospitals, among the children. If the children try to escape, they're shot. And what happens is Israel, this has been verified, will send notifications. They drop leaflets and they call on people's cell phones. They have the technology to do so. And they say, we're going to attack this apartment building. We don't want civilian casualties. If you can, get out right now. And the Hamas terrorists will kill them if they try to get out. Because to them, the more civilians that die, the more people like Cassidy and Saint go, yeah, Israel, they're bloodthirsty. So they don't care about the human life. For a genocide, it's kind of ridiculous because there are more Palestinians alive today than there have ever been. They're extremely fertile. And the Israelis
that's a garbage argument. Just because you make more
No,
people.
the Israelis have done nothing to genocide the Palestinians. They're thriving population-wise.
Besides bombing them.
All right. Let's move on from
No,
this.
they're
This
not
is a
keeping food from them.
All right, hold on.
The Hamas
What he
is.
was trying to say is like this,
Yeah.
all of this goes way before just a couple of years ago, actually. And he was just speaking to the cross-cultural oppression and why things have been created from a severe oppression of a culture. And so, and like he's literally also explaining that like America itself, we have been bred from oppression, and people are also have studied that to use a playbook of the Americas from the European Revolution. So he's just explaining that like the history is so rooted so deep that like I don't think we'll even ever, there's nuance in it all and there's paradox in it all. And I don't think we'll ever be able to fully understand it, but we have to, like, for me, I'm like, we have to pull back from this idealization of Israel or Palestine or the US in their government and political views and religious views, because it's all propaganda from the beginning of time.
So our friend Adam Carolla has a thing he says. It's Adam usually has original takes, but he has a thing that's echoed by a lot of people where he says 200 years ago, now, 200 years from now, if you want news stories that'll be the same headline, across 1,000 years. It's that, turmoil in the Mideast. So let's move on from this. I want to move into some like late breaking shit. And one is that Viktor Orban, the far right leader of Hungary for the past 16 years, has been voted out of office. The other late breaking thing is that California has a governor election coming up, and the front running Democrat, Eric Swalwell, looks like he might be super rapey and has suspended his campaign. 4 women have come forward accusing him of being a sexual predator, to the point of one of them has said rape, possibly with intoxication, where she woke up from it anyway. So it's early days on that. This broke a couple days ago, but it looks super fucking bad for Swalwell. And let me just say that Swalwell should go if any of this is substantiated, which it looks like it already is being substantiated. But the Republicans also have a guy, Tony Gonzalez, a rep out of Texas, harassed one of the women in his office to bang him, and she had an affair with him, and he bugged her so much for nude pictures and just in general. There's maybe other stuff going on with her, but she was sufficiently bothered by the circumstances of her life, including this being coerced into an affair, that she covered herself in gasoline and burned herself to death. And that Gonzalez motherfucker is still in Congress. So there you go.
Well, he's not running again. He'll be retiring. The Republicans have called for him to retire, which is what he's going to do. And call me unfair, Rick, but I've never forgiven Swalwell for sleeping with a Chinese spy while he was
that's unsubstantiated.
while he was on the intelligence committee.
As soon as the FBI said you have a woman we found is a Chinese agent, that's raising money for your campaign, he cut ties with her. Now, when you're a honeypot, she's a cute lady. Her name she comes up a lot. In 2015, or 2014, she was working with Swalwell and a lot of political figures, and she was fucking some of them. It hasn't been substantiated that she was banging Swalwell, though
given
the current revelations, it's possible. He wasn't married at the time.
Well, that's big of you, Rick, to admit that. I can't believe you're being so fair and balanced. Rick, the man is a disaster, and even though he was obviously fucking a Chinese spy,
how obvious? The FBI investigated him.
Nancy Pelosi put him on the Intelligence Committee because the Democrats never admit when they're wrong, like yourself. They never admit. And so if you find that that your congressman is possibly in a traitor,
I just said Swalwell should go.
Yeah, but he should have gone when he was found with this Chinese spy.
He wasn't. He got
no. And what happened was Nancy Pelosi put him on the Intelligence Committee. It was party in front of country. She would rather stick up for another Democrat than protect the United States. That's the kind of people you are.
He was investigated in 2020 by the FBI and exonerated.
So now you claim to know more than the FBI. Neither of us believe that he was exonerated.
I'm saying that there's no evidence that he fucked Fang Fang.
He was investigated by the Biden FBI, which was corrupt. So the point is that the fact that you've got to defend him, even though you know damn well he did it, and I knew at the time.
She was fucking mayors of towns.
You just admitted it a minute ago.
I said that here's what I said. Don't put words in my mouth. I said, given his, if all this other stuff is true, then he seems to be like a guy who takes a lot of sexual opportunities or makes opportunities for himself. So, but Is there evidence that he banged
I
her?
don't
No.
need evidence. I knew it at the time. You're now admitting it was probably true.
No,
So
I'm
so
not,
it
Lance.
took
Freaking
years
Lance.
for you
I'm
to
saying-
realize it.
I'm saying it's there's a thing called Bayesian logic. I won't go into it, but if he moved from the set of people who are like just people to the set of people who are sexual predators and opportunists, then that raises the probability that if she was making herself sexually available, that he took advantage of that. That doesn't mean that there's any more evidence that he banged her back in 2014 than there was a week ago. It just means that we know more about what he likes to do with his boner.
Rick, you're putting party before country.
I'm not fucking as soon as the FBI back in 2015 said we found out she's working for China, he cut ties with her.
Oh, that's big of him, Rick. I'm impressed. He's a true patriot. Okay, let me explain. If you're a member of Congress and somebody that's obviously a Chinese spy wants to have sex with you, you should know that and not do it. There are people now that are coming forward that say that she was obviously a Chinese spy. There are people there's a fellow that she went to his office and he said he knew right off the bat that she was a Chinese spy because he had just written something that was anti-Chinese. And so she appeared and he knew that she was there to seduce him. Victor Davis Hanson.
Yeah, but Victor David Hanson is kind of a fucking lunatic.
Yeah, well, I think you're a fucking lunatic.
Maybe so.
Listen, ad hominem arguments don't help you.
Well,
so
no,
what I'm
Victor
trying to
Davis,
say
look
is
at Victor David Hanson's record.
Victor Davis Hanson and others have said that it was fairly obvious she was a Chinese spy. You can't take a guy that has just had sex with a Chinese spy and put him on the intelligence committee where he can get information to the communist Chinese, unless you hate the country and love your own party more than your country. And right now I see that it's more important for you, for the Democrats to win than for your country to be safe from Chinese spies. That's how bad you have been brainwashed.
So I'm going to do a what about? What about the Chinese spy that Trump let hang out at Mar-a-Lago? An even more obvious Chinese spy, somebody who could barely speak English, flouncing around so anyway.
Did Trump put him on the intelligence committee?
No. All right. What do we want to move on to? We've yelled about this shit. Let's see what else we got. All right. Trump and jobs. So Trump is, if you don't count the last month, which where the Bureau of Labor Statistics say that 178,000 jobs were created in March, though that will almost certainly be revised downward because they revised the initial number down in 12 out of the last 13 months. Disregarding that month, Trump hasn't created any jobs in the last year. And his entire first term as president, he was the first president to lose jobs. He lost 3 million jobs, first president since 1933, which is being a little unfair to Trump because we were in the middle of COVID, except that Trump was in charge of COVID and Trump fired the early pandemic response team 2 years before COVID. So anyway, we're not making any fucking jobs. But let me say one more thing. It's not entirely Trump's fault in that fucking AI is eating jobs like fucking Pac-Man. It's just chewing up like decent jobs, the Make America Great jobs of the 50s, where a dad could work in an insurance office and the mom could stay home and wear pearls and shit. And replacing good, like old school jobs with horrible new school jobs like Uber and OnlyFans model.
Well, I would just like to say that whenever I look over at Cassidy, she's smiling at me. And for almost an hour, I thought she liked what I was saying. And then it occurred to me, wait a minute, I keep telling her to smile because that's in the painting. So she doesn't like what I'm saying. She doesn't think we're funny or interesting. She's inside, she's seething at us, at least at me.
No, I'm not.
Except,
I know pretty bad, but-
except that she's being forced to smile because of the painting. I just want the audience to know that I'm hip. So as far as the jobs go, we're at 4.3, which is on the high side. We'd like it to go down. One of the problems is the Democrats run the Fed, and the Fed refuses to lower interest rates because they're trying to destroy the economy so they can take over. The Democrats will destroy a country if it helps them to gain power. So the Democrats around the country are doing whatever they can to destroy the economy. They won't lower the interest rates, but also they brought in millions and millions of illegal aliens who are taking the low-skilled jobs.
Well, hold on. Wait. Respond to this. So Trump, the one campaign promise that Trump has really fulfilled is that he shut down the southern border. So for 15 months now, we've been deporting people, though not as many as under Biden or Obama.
That's a lie.
No, look at the fucking numbers. But anyway, with the border's been shut down, and has your life materially improved because we're not getting hit with a ton of immigrants coming over the border, as you say was happening under Biden. You know, we can argue about the number of millions of immigrants coming in under Biden. They haven't been coming in since January of 2025. So has anything gotten better because of that? No, let me give you a possible.
Am I supposed to answer?
Wait.
It's a question you
Rent.
answer.
I just read an article.
Okay.
The rent has been going down.
Okay.
And then I asked, well, why? Is it because no immigrants? They said no, because people are financially pinched, and because we're finally maybe building more fucking housing stock.
Okay. Rick poses a childlike question to me.
Why is it childlike?
I get to answer now.
Okay.
Okay. So the U.S. has possibly 40 million illegal immigrants in it. They had on the low estimate, 11 million, which Rick agreed with, and we estimated it was closer to 20 million before the Biden administration allowed in another 20 million. Now, that means there could be, on the low side, 20 million or 30 million. There could be more, it could be 40 million. No one knows, Rick, so you don't have to look this up, because the one thing we do know is scores of millions or tens of millions of illegals have invaded the country. Now, is my life better because Trump has taken office? Well, he's closed the border down and he's trying to deport these illegal aliens. But everywhere that it's possible, the Democrats are putting up stiff resistance because they want as many illegal aliens in the country as possible, because those are the only people dumb enough to vote for them. And they're going to get them to vote. So, no, we haven't been able to get rid of millions of them. I believe we've gotten rid of as many as 2 million. So that only leaves 30 or 40 million to go. So no, things aren't really going to change, Rick, until the country is empty of tens of millions of illegal aliens. When the country is empty of those, we will have higher wages.
It'll be heaven on earth.
You have to let me speak now, Rick. We'll have higher wages for poor people. We'll have more housing, cheaper rent. Our prisons will be emptier. Our schools will be more effective. And overall, there will be less poverty in the United States. So I'm looking forward to that. That's all I have to say.
All right. So if they want to deport a ton of people, which they shouldn't fuck with Minnesota and Maine. They should go to the biggest states. And in fact, Google AI tells me the highest number of arrests and deportations include Texas, Florida, Georgia, California, and New York. So, it's weird to fuck with blue states that are at the northern border, because that's if you want to shoot fish in a barrel, the fish are all along the southern border in the big ass states. Anyway, let's move on to something else. What do we got here? Should we talk about gas? Or should we go to Mark? It's got to be time.
let's
Look at
bring
Mark.
Mark.
Let's go
Let's
to
bring
Mark.
Mark,
Let's
yeah.
go to Mark.
Yeah, it's time for me and everything along those lines. I got a quick question for Cassidy, because I was talking to a friend of mine. Y'all were talking about Jewish folks earlier, and I was thinking about an actor that played Moses back in the day, but he also starred in a very controversial movie about what could happen if we're in a food shortage and everything like that. So I was talking to this friend, and we were talking about the movie Soylent Green. So I was just wondering, Cassidy, how concerned are you about the food supply, what's going on with the food supply and everything like that? Because let's just say that in Soylent Green, a certain commodity that we have plenty of in the earth becomes a stock of the food chain and everything like that. So I don't know if you're familiar with that movie. I know that Rick is familiar with
That
the movie.
movie's 50 years old.
It's an old
haven't
movie.
I haven't seen the movie, but I mean, I don't know. I feel like that's not like, because there's certain things that grab my concern and attention, and it's like, I think of course I'm like worried, but I'm not like as focused on that, like as I
Right.
don't know.
So, as a good capitalist, now Lance accuses Democrats of being socialist, communist, whatever. As a good capitalist, I'm always looking for opportunities to make money. And I'm waiting for not the food wars, but the coming water wars. There's not enough water to support the population. So at some point, water is going to become precious. And I've tried to invest in water companies, and it doesn't frickin' work, because the stock market really only looks 2 years into the future. If something's going to happen in 2030 or 2040, they don't give a crap. So you can't invest in future water wars easily.
That's true and everything.
But we may get a break, because Gen Z is not making babies throughout the world.
Yeah, throughout the world. But
Everybody's so busy looking at their phone. Taiwan is something like 60% under stable reproduction rate. Every woman needs to average slightly more than 2 women, because guys can't have kids. So the women have to be the ones who spit out the babies, just to keep the population stable. In Taiwan, instead of averaging 2 kids per woman, it's like 0.78. In the US, it's 1.57. We're more than 20% under having a stable population if it weren't for immigration. So if Trump continues to be successful at shutting down the southern border, and Gen Z continues to be successful at staring at their phones and not getting laid, we could have a declining population for the first time in U.S. history.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Hey,
Which means that you don't have to do Soylent Green stuff, and you don't have to have water wars.
Yeah, with Soylent Green, for those that are watching and trying to figure out what that's about, it's about humans were the food source and everything like that. And it came up in a conversation because my friend said that they had heard that there was human DNA found in some beef that was out there recently and everything like that. So that's what Soylent Green is that we actually have humans that are the source of food.
Well, every once in a while, somebody falls in, like, if one of those big combine machines might sweep up a worker, and like your beets might be like 0.0008% farm worker.
Could be that and everything along those lines. What is your thoughts about that, Lance? And then I was going to get to some sports news. I know y'all are not big sports fans, and I don't know how many of y'all are golf fans, but I did see that Rory McIlroy has won the third championship. So he won the third Masters and everything like that. So there's a lot of people that are excited about this because he is a premier golfer, and now he's won 3 championships in a row.
Well, I think this was his second consecutive Masters.
Yes, I think it was second consecutive Master and then third overall. I think that's what it was.
Are you posing?
I watched some of the
Take your break.
Masters, and it seemed like a frickin' like really weird golf because the greens were so slick. The ball just didn't stop. So people were doing these circus trick shots where they'd hit the ball onto the green like 50 feet away from the cup, and the ball would roll around in a big circle and glide to 5 feet within the cup. And I don't know, it didn't seem like regular golf to me. It seemed like weird skating rink golf.
Well, speaking of weird sports,
but I guess that's why it's the Masters.
It's the Masters. But speaking of weird sports, and then I'll get to the commercials as well, including one for a friend of mine's book and everything along those lines that I just put in there and everything along those lines. But I watched my first, at least in a while, I might have watched one back in the day and everything, UFL game. And they've got some weird rules. Like you can't kick a punt if you go over the 50-yard line, and they've got a 4-point field goal. So if you kick it over 50 yards, you can score 4 points instead of the standard 3 points. They've got some other weird rules, but I think they're trying to make the game faster and everything along those lines. So I don't know if you watched a UFL game, but they're trying to make it, I guess.
It was on at the gym. I just saw it incidentally. So the UFL is football for people who miss, it's another league for people who need to watch football year round. And yeah, they want to try some new stuff because it's more fun that way. Basketball is definitely a different, more fun since the 3-point line. And yeah, so I'm in favor of trying new stuff. In football, I like new stuff that reduces the brain damage, but I also like new, that 4-point field goal thing.
Yep, it could be exciting and everything. But we get ready to get to some commercials and everything like that. I do have a friend who's written a book about his family and their connection to slavery and all along those lines. So y'all see that commercial coming up and everything, and then we'll be back. I think y'all said you were doing 3, or did y'all say you were doing 4?
We're going to do 3. It's too big a pain, and it's too big an ordeal to do 4 of these things.
All right, so we'll do one. We'll do the
I could respond to that Soylent Green thing.
Yeah, please.
Well, it ties in with this apocalyptic view that the population is diminishing. And I think it's part of the leftist conspiracy to destroy the West. They don't want Europeans and Americans to have kids. They find that people from the Middle East, Africa, and South America are more useful as replacements who can then vote Democrats in, and they're more interested in socialism. So, and being ruled over by an authoritarian government. So I think that it's in the interests of the Democrat Party and their allies in the communists to replace for the traditional people that lived in America and Europe to stop producing kids, which is what they're doing. And so what they've done is they've convinced leftists not to have kids because they're so worried about global warming and lack of water. And they've convinced women to despise men. Any man that has reached our age knows that women hate men more than ever in our lifetime. And they've also convinced people to have abortions whenever possible. So if the traditional English and Irish and French and Americans were having kids and not aborting them, the populations would not be diminishing as much.
So,
They've also encouraged transgenderism and homosexuality, which also reduces the population of the country. So if you want to know why the population is going badly, if you want to know what the apocalyptic future is caused by, it's because of leftist propaganda
yeah,
and
this
brainwashing.
is vile horseshit. So this
Well,
is a
think of-
long-term trend. Hold on. This is a long-term trend happening on 5 out of the 6 populated continents by 2050. The only continent that'll have positive population growth will be Africa. It's not just America, it's Europe, it's Asia, it's all around the world. And yeah, some of it might be despair, some of it might be social ineptitude because everybody is married to their fucking phones, and some of it is that boomers have all the fucking money and nobody can afford to have a kid. People 45 years of age and older in America have 94% of the assets. So it's tough for young people, if you're living if you're couch surfing, if you're living with 2 roommates in a 500 square foot apartment, it's hard to find someplace to bang, much less knock somebody up and have a fucking kid.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah, he was just
let's
saying
take our
that.
break.
By the
Should
way,
we take
before I
our
get to
break?
commercials and everything like that, apparently McElroy, because I mentioned him, is not a fan of Trump because it says that he went and played some golf with him back in 2020, and apparently he's been extremely critical of President Trump. He made it clear that he wouldn't want to play a round of golf with the President of the United States, and apparently Trump wasn't supporting him in this year's Masters because he said he played a round with Trump back in 2017. I haven't done it since, out of choice. He said in an interview with it looked like an Irish magazine. And McElroy said that President Trump was charming and charismatic during their rounds together. It was an enjoyable experience. However, that doesn't mean that McElroy agrees with his politics. Far from it, to be honest. So he said, I will sit here and say that the day I had with him, I enjoyed, but that doesn't mean that I agree with everything or, in fact, anything that he says, because apparently he had sounded off on the president.
Yeah, I'm not sure Trump would be an enjoyable golf partner. Rick Riley, a sports writer, has written a book that talks about Trump is a notorious cheater at golf. Kicking the ball and taking, I don't know all the different ways you can cheat at golf, but Trump does. All right, commercials.
It's still
All right. It's
Oh.
Naked at Night, and
Oh, hey, sorry.
and Rick is
okay, sorry.
Rick is rushing over because he always starts us off. I was going to say something really important and interesting, but now that Rick's here, let's hear what he has
Yeah,
to say.
we'll get back to my bullshit. Thank you. Okay, there I am. So let's talk about 2 economic powerhouses. New York City, currently with Mamdani in charge, and California, which even though California is more than 60% Democratic, may get a Republican governor because we have a jungle primary. And we have a runoff where we've got like 9 major candidates running for governor, 2 Republican and 7 Democrats. And the Democrats and the top 2 vote getters have a runoff to become governor. And it's possible that the Democrats may split the vote so that the top 2 Republican candidates, Steve Hilton and Chad Blanco, I think, may get more votes than any Democrat. So Swalwell, who was the leading Democratic candidate, he's done. He suspended his campaign. He's rapey. That may actually help the Democrats because now there's a big chunk of vote that will go to a smaller field of Democrats. But what I wanted to say is that it doesn't frickin' matter who's a lot who's governed. We've had Republican governors. We had Gray Davis while I was here. I've been here 30 some years. We had Schwarzenegger served a couple terms or 1.5 terms. He's a Republican. You know, California is an economic powerhouse regardless of who's governor. We just overtook Japan to become the world's 4th largest economy. And
California did?
so yeah, so it's weird to have a state as its own economy, but it goes, I think the US, then China, then some other frickin' place, then California. If you want to look at California separate from everything else, we're frickin' huge. Ditto for New York City. Like everybody, like Republicans are going, oh my God, it's a socialist, communist, frickin'. It doesn't matter. Money runs New York. And to a pretty big extent, money runs California. And money does what money wants to do.
Okay, I assume I'm meant to speak now.
Sure, go ahead.
Now, Rick will vote for the Democrat regardless of what I say and regardless of what they do. Now, it turns out that the Democrats, we're now wondering, see, Rick's from Colorado, and he's, let me put it this way. When I grew up in California, there were no homeless people. All right.
Now we have
And
100,000 homeless people.
we've got the most in the country.
Second most to New York.
Yeah. And the thing is that the Democrats created that problem. And so it turns out that not only did they create the problem, but they did what all Democrats do. They created the problem, and then they put bills up asking if people want to commit money in their and have their taxes raised to try to get rid of the homeless, to try to help the homeless. And so Californians, being naive, said, okay, raise our taxes, just get rid of the homeless. So what happened is, we're now finding out, because of the investigations from the Republicans into fraud, that the Democrats took billions and billions of dollars that was meant to go to the homeless, and they kept it for themselves. So we're not sure what they did with the money. Okay? Now, so what that means is, the first thing I'm telling you, this is sort of breaking news. It hasn't been completely investigated yet. So nobody knows who got the money. Nobody knows how much it was. We do know that it was many billions of dollars. And we still have the worst homeless problem in the world. And Rick will still vote for the Democrats.
Well, yeah, because a lot of what you say is horse shit.
Really, we didn't give any money to try to help the homeless that is now disappeared.
We've spent a ton of money. Like it
What
costs.
happened to that
Hold
money, Rick?
on. It costs like 80 grand to house one homeless person, which is a ridiculously high cost. So has there been some bullshit going on? Maybe, probably, but do I have to believe everything you say about it?
Well, did we have a
No.
homeless problem in the 1960s when I was growing up?
No, but
So why is it happening now? Why don't
so
the
I asked
Democrats-
AI.
Oh, you
Homelessness-
asked AI.
So I asked freaking AI.
Oh, I'm sure.
So AI says, and this is endorsed by Carol. Carol's like, why don't you talk to AI on your show? Why don't you let AI weigh in? So here's what I'm doing it. Homelessness in California is exceptionally high, primarily due to an extreme shortage of affordable housing.
Whose fault is that?
Probably the success of the state, where we have a ton of rich.
No, the Democrats have
So
prevented
this
housing from being
there's
made.
more.
No.
There's homegrown crisis is compounded by high construction costs, poverty, and systemic failures in mental health care, with 82% of homeless individuals reporting a mental health or substance use condition.
All right. So the Democrats first of all, they've prevented new housing from being built. In the city of San Francisco, they put up so many regulations that they can't. There are builders that have just moved out because they can't build in San Francisco. The regulations to build more are deliberate. The California started something called the no growth policy decades ago, and we're feeling the fruits of that.
So
But there's
it's
more.
also called NIMBYism, which stands for
But
not
no,
my backyard.
No, there's more.
It's the same thing.
And there's no, it isn't. What happened is there aren't more houses being built for middle class people. That's why houses are so expensive, because there's too much regulation, the construction costs are too high, and they won't let them build in areas where we could have cheaper housing if we went east into the desert, into the less populated areas. But there's more.
But I'm on a government committee, a local government committee that addresses these issues. And you and I are saying the same. NIMBYism is quite similar to what you're saying.
No,
where
I'm saying
people
more.
who live in fancy neighborhoods or even middle class neighborhoods don't want to have a housing glut. Somebody that lives on a block full of single family homes doesn't want one of those homes torn down and replaced with a 10-unit apartment building that puts their whole house in shadow.
Okay, but it was the Democrats that put those bills forward to try to do that, and it was the
Well,
Republicans
just
that
use some
stopped.
common sense. It's people with houses, including middle class and rich people who want those restrictions.
No, it's the Democrats that are trying to put these kinds of housing in the Palisades. Now that it burned down, they want to replace those houses with cheap apartments.
So wait, that's a good thing. That houses more people.
If you want to have only poor people in housing everywhere,
Not
in
only poor people.
apartments. No, if you want to replace houses with apartments like a good communist, then yeah, that's what they're trying
Well,
to
now
do.
you're contradicting yourself and being ridiculous.
No,
Average
but that
rents.
is what
Okay,
they're
so
doing.
average
But
rents.
there's more.
No,
I
wait,
just
there's
wanna-
average rents, according to Mr. AI. Often average rents in LA and San Francisco average 2,500 to 3,000 a month. And I've looked in my thing as a committee, and also because I'm in Studio City, which is a nice fucking town that is reluctant to have like auxiliary building units and have the Sportsman's Lodge Hotel turn into a 500 unit. The deal is builders come in and they say, yeah, we're going to turn this hotel into a 500 unit apartment building, which will create all sorts of traffic problems and stuff. But we will give you 15% or 75 units out of 500 for low income. And it's often bullshit because the builders don't want to build low income units. They'll figure out a way that those 75 units, they'll figure out a way to get a decent price for those units.
All right, let me respond.
Okay.
So I just wanted to say that when the Republicans were in charge, we created the Democrats pushed through the Ninth Circuit laws that allowed vagrancy. So when I was a kid, you couldn't sleep on the street, but the Ninth Circuit made it a right to sleep on the street, and so that was the beginning of the homeless problem. So if we'd elected Republicans and the Republicans had sway with the courts, they would have continued the vagrancy laws. And so if somebody was found sleeping on the street, you would be able to take them to a facility, be against their will. And they would have to go to these facilities that we had and could build again, and they'd have to stay there. But the Democrats don't like that because they say in Portland, in Seattle, in LA, in San Francisco, that it is a person's right to sleep on the street. And that's one of the ways the Democrats have managed to destroy all of our major cities, all of the blue
You're
cities.
right. The 5150 72-hour hold law was signed into law by that great Democratic governor, Ronald Reagan. This says that if you're a crazy person, you can only be held for 72 hours, then they have to put you back on the street. So Reagan has the reputation for having emptied the loony bins, and and there's some truth in that.
That's not what really happened. What happened was there were large mental institutions that were functional under Reagan, but there were smaller community mental institutions that were doing a poor job. And those smaller community mental institutions were closed by Reagan. But the amazing thing to me is that Rick has to defend the Democrats. So even though any of this started 60 years ago, he still wants to blame a Republican from 60 years ago. He can't just
Fair
say, look,
point. Fair point.
can't
You're
just
right.
say,
You're
look, we've had
right.
Democrat
Fair
governors
point. That's fine.
for 20 years, 30 years, who could have solved the problem by building facilities, but instead they took the money and they kept it and gave it
Yeah,
to their
except we
buddies.
don't have the legal right to lock people up anymore.
It's not that. The
But
5150.
at the beginning of this episode, I said money runs California
I'm not
and
finished.
New York City.
I'm not finished.
And
The 5150 is only for people that are mentally ill, but there are also the vagrancy laws. Okay, the 5150 is as Rick described it, but there were laws against sleeping on the street. Even if you were perfectly sane, they could say this is illegal, you need to stay in a facility.
okay.
All right.
But I would say that part of the problem is that California is a very successful ass state where it drives the price of real estate up. And there are a couple other things that are happening. So we build for safety. That is, the building code book got a lot thicker while I lived in this state to make sure that people don't get smushed in an earthquake. The building has also gotten greener. That's another reason where we want to create less pollution. And we could argue about that, but the earthquake shit does seem pretty reasonable. Also, like 12,000 homes were destroyed in the two big fires we had 15 months ago. And I worry that we're going to put up the same kind of shit, the same houses with wooden studs and plywood cladding. And we really should be looking at new ways to build homes so that, they don't go up in flames, and, so we can cram more people into without things sucking. Like, I like the retail on the bottom and restaurants with a residential above model, like the Grove or like the Americana. I like that stuff. There's okay.
I'd like to criticize the Democrats some more.
About what?
When I was growing up here, the best place in LA to go to was Santa Monica. And I've mentioned this before, but it bears repeating. Under Democrat leadership, Santa Monica became worse than a third world slum. It's the most dangerous part, one of the most dangerous places in America. It has completely collapsed. It's chaos and anarchy. So that's what you get when you have Democrat leadership. A beautiful, popular place where you would go on a date, there were restaurants, there were thriving businesses, has been completely destroyed by Democrat leadership. It's now overrun with criminals and homeless people. The police are opening up stations, but that they never had before to try to stop it. But it's almost hopeless situation now that the Democrats destroyed it. They did the same thing to San Francisco, and Rick will keep voting for him.
So I'm going to argue that money shapes culture. When
We're
Carol and
going
I
back to
moved,
his theory.
when we moved to LA, we lived in Brentwood, which was the next town over from Santa Monica. And this was 1989. And Santa Monica kind of sucked. And then it got revitalized for, I don't know, a good 10, 15 years. They built a nice new mall. They built an indoor mall. They built, they revitalized the pedestrian mall. And it was great for 10 years. And then it started going to shit again.
Because of the Democrats.
No, I would say because of the death of retail.
The reason
Hold on, no, wait. Now you talk. Now I get to. Frickin' Ventura Boulevard is the main drag in the part of town I live in. And I live in Studio City, which we're lucky enough for. Ventura Boulevard is still nice where we live because we have a shit ton of restaurants. But retail, the places that sell shoes or t-shirts, those places are fucked. You get your shoes and t-shirts off the internet. And so the other parts of Ventura Boulevard, Encino, Tarzana, Woodland Hills, it kind of sucks along that drag. And I believe the death of brick and mortar has a lot to do with Santa Monica getting sucky. And one more thing, when I moved to LA, it was 20 minutes to get anywhere. Then it was 40 minutes. And now it's never. To get to in or out of Santa Monica on a weekday, it's like hours because the traffic is so shitty. We do this show right here on Sunday night because to get to you, I have to drive 30 miles on the 110 or the 405, and any other time the traffic is shitty. So Santa Monica's been choked off by traffic. It's try to get out of Santa Monica at 2:30 in the afternoon. It's terrible. All right.
So, all right. The reason that Santa Monica fell to pieces is because they allowed it to be basically taken over by criminals and the homeless. And so people didn't want to go there anymore because they would encounter crazy people. If you go there now, we could film there now if you want, you'll almost certainly be attacked, especially if you have a camera. So I don't know if you're proud of that, Rick. You keep.
I don't know because I don't go to Santa Monica anymore because now I live in Studio City, and sometimes we'll find out about a function in Santa Monica. Carol's like, "Do you want to go?" And I'm like, "When is it?" And if it's during any reasonable hour, we're like, "Nah," because it's not. No, so I haven't seen.
And part of the reason for the traffic problems is because we've got several million illegal aliens living here that shouldn't be here.
No, I've been caught in traffic in Santa Monica, and I'm not surrounded by frickin' illegal aliens.
How do you know?
Because I look at the other drivers.
And they don't look like illegal aliens to you?
I know what an illegal alien looks like. An illegal alien is driving a pickup truck on the way to a gardening job, driving under the speed limit because he doesn't want to get in trouble. Frickin', or driving some kind of beater. Yeah, okay, I'm stereotyping, but yeah, the traffic in Santa Monica is not lousy with illegals.
All right. Well, I personally never went to Santa Monica in the middle of the daytime decades ago because of the traffic. So that's not the real problem. The Santa Monica did not decline because of traffic. Anyway, do you want to continue with another subject? This has become tiresome.
I don't know that this is relevant because we've kind of just swept it under, kind of forgotten about it, except for lunatics like me. But fucking COVID is at its lowest levels in the western half of the US since the beginning of frickin' COVID. I'm going to the gym and leaving my mask off, which is like crazy behavior for me. And it feels weird, but it's just, we're down to ridiculously low levels. And if the World Cup doesn't screw us by bringing the world and its germs to us this summer, I'm hoping that it stays low into the fall. And I'm enjoying the freedom.
That's another thing that I don't hate the Democrats enough for. I sometimes forget that they are the ones that caused the COVID disaster.
All right, our
And it-
director,
and it
like
re- and it
you're
re-
gonna
and it
give
rem-
him a
and it-
broken neck from
Okay, you're
shaking
talking
his head.
over me now,
Okay,
Rick.
all right.
Okay, so I will never forgive the Democrats for locking down the state because of COVID. They're cowardly, stupid. I learned what it's like to live in North Korea because I lived in California under Democrat rule, who shut my state down. Now, I like to remind people, I couldn't go to the beach because the Democrats would tell me the beach was off limits. I couldn't go outside without a mask. I couldn't go into a building without a mask. They shut my business down too, and I never recovered from the financial loss. Countless businesses were wiped out by the Democrats. All the while, it turns out that Nancy Pelosi and Gavin Newsom were going without masks and partying and being with their buddies and breaking every rule they could because they knew that they didn't have to worry about it. It was all the actions of lunatics, and someday, if there was any justice, the Democrats would be held responsible and punished for what they did to their captive people in California.
So California had a death rate 60% less than Florida. Also, who was president in 2020 when COVID hit?
He couldn't stop Gavin Newsom from imposing these things on Californians. He couldn't stop them.
Which led to us having one of the lowest death rates in the country. If you're not a fan of dying.
The reason Florida's death rate was higher is because it has a vastly higher percentage of elderly people.
Yeah, well, COVID kills old people.
Right, so old people could have stayed home.
Oh, but you don't like people staying home.
No, actually, I like it when they say, okay, people that are obese, people that are vulnerable, people that are old and sickly, they should stay home. But little children,
You
tortured children.
Little children get the disease and then they bring it home
No, that's Democrat propaganda.
fat old family.
That's Democrat propaganda. They proved that unless you were showing symptoms, you were not going to bring it home to anybody.
That's
if
bullshit.
if you came home and you were fine, you were not a danger to anybody. The Democrats ruined those kids' lives. And that just shows me how much you cared about kids. You know, the Democrat teachers unions kept the schools closed long after every other union in the country had opened up their schools. In California, they have so much power that they kept the schools closed because they didn't feel like working. And the Democrats supported them for that, to the detriment of all of our children.
I'd like to remind everybody that COVID killed more Americans than the total number of Americans who died in all of our wars combined. It was the deadliest event in US history. And so I can say we made, dealing with a new virus, there were overreactions. The going to the beach thing was probably an overreaction. But I don't know what you're going to do when you got this fucking thing that's killing a ton, hundreds of thousands of people a year.
All right. Well, first of all, you let them take ivermectin,
No, that's
And-
entirely
and-
bullshit. That's
Yeah,
entirely
it's the most effective antibiotic that won the Nobel Prize for curing this kind of respiratory virus.
no, that's
And-
utter
and-
bullshit.
Yeah, no, it's not bullshit. And
no, that's
secondly,
just
and you let people go outside and get plenty of exercise and sun and vitamin D, and also they lied about the statistics. A lot of those people died from other causes. The death rate didn't increase that much to show that. Okay, so now Rick is using the computer on me. So
Yeah, because when you
anyway, I since you can't argue using your own mind, I'm just going to continue.
yeah, when
and
you say total bullshit,
Yeah,
no,
it's not-
ivermectin did not win the Nobel Prize for respiratory diseases.
it did win the- it
Ivermectin
won
was
the
a
No-
key part of the 2015 Nobel Prize in Medicine, which was awarded for its discovery and application in treating parasitic diseases,
Right,
like
okay.
worms, not
Okay.
fucking viruses.
Okay, well,
Roundworm parasites.
Okay, so it does.
It kills
can be
worms.
used.
It doesn't kill viruses, which aren't
Yeah,
even
no,
freaking
but
alive.
when they used it, it helped people with COVID. Yes.
The claim
So-
that it won the Nobel Prize has been flagged for misinformation.
Okay, Rick, the ivermectin in every study they did showed that it was effective against COVID, and the Democrats refused to let people use it, and they lied to people like you with AI. They controlled the media. They controlled Twitter. They controlled Wikipedia. They controlled the medical establishment. They refused to allow people to use it
Horse
so
crap.
that your buddies at the pharmaceutical companies could make more money. That's all it was about.
Is ivermectin again? Ivermectin has shown. All right. So here's what AI says. It's shown antiviral properties in vitro, that is in petri dishes, against several viruses, including COVID, HIV-1, and dengue fever. However, hold on,
I'm gonna take the
wait,
win.
motherfucker,
I'm
wait.
taking the win.
However, high quality clinical evidence does not support its effectiveness for treating viral infections in humans.
Okay. I'm taking the win. Can we change subjects?
I don't know, we're running out of stuff. What do you got? Cassidy, you have anything? Saint, you got anything?
Wait a
How do
minute.
you guys,
Wait a minute.
how do you guys feel about the fact
I'm not that desperate.
35 the past 35 years, 97% of jobs have been created under Democrat leadership.
Well, that
50 million jobs were created under the Democrats, while 1.3 million or 1.6 million were created under Republicans.
is so. Yeah, I mean that's a damning statistic. Republicans are anti-regulation and they let the economy overheat, and it leads to crashes, which leads to job losses. And then then people get sick of the Republicans. They elect Democrats, and the Democrats come in with a ton of regulations, and then things get kind of normal for a while. And then people get sick of that, and then it goes back to Republicans.
All right. Well, the worst thing that the Democrats have done for the poor people in this country is bring in millions of cheap laborers from the poor parts of the world. So I don't know whether I believe your statistic, but even if it was true, what the Democrats plan for the working class, for the blue collar in this country, is annihilation.
Okay, so AI, ask Mr. AI, what percent, Ms. AI possibly, of the US labor force is illegals? Approximately 4.6 to 5% of the US workforce, according to 2022 to 2024 estimates. So one worker in 20 or 21 is undocumented. So, okay, so maybe has a slight effect, but really it's bigger trends that, and that, here's key data. Here's more details regarding unauthorized workforce, industry concentration. Undocumented make up significant portions of workers in agriculture, construction, and hospitality. For instance, maids and cooks. So I don't know. So, all right, construction, that makes, like, I can see where choking off illegal workers might be helpful in construction. It might raise wages because, an undocumented construction worker might get 15 bucks, 12, 14, 15 bucks an hour under the table, where a legit worker, might get 30, 35 bucks an hour. So, ag workers, anyway, I don't know.
I don't even know why you're so defensive. Years ago, when we started this show, you used to insist to me that you were against illegal immigration.
Yeah, I still agree with that. I'm for a controlled border with very liberal legal immigration.
Then you should love Trump because he's controlled the border.
Not the way.
Not the way that he's doing it though, with all his ICE agents, like scaring the whole freaking everyone. He's
I'm not afraid.
harassing
I'm not
people.
afraid.
Yeah, because you're white.
And the people that I know that are not white are not afraid of ICE.
I've had several people who are U.S. citizens be harassed by ICE, who are U.S. citizens.
Were they at
They're-
protests?
No, just because of their ethnicity. One being a really like high-powered lawyer.
Okay. Well, did they find out that he was an American citizen and leave him alone? Or is he been deported now to Cuba?
Just the fact that people are being harassed in general like that. I
Well,
feel
how
like-
are they going to get rid of 20 million people? What's the nice way? Should we ask people?
There actually is a better way because
There is?
whatever president was in power at that one time was able to get illegal immigrants out that were proven to be involved in crime out in a way that wasn't so harmful to the public as a whole.
Well, what the Democrats did was they prevented ICE from going into the jails. So what the Democrats do is they release illegal aliens wherever they run the city, and they say to ICE, you find them wherever you can. So that's why there's so much going on with these criminals causing chaos around the state, around these blue cities. The ICE agents used to be able to go into the jails and just upon the release of the illegal alien criminal, they could deport them. But the Democrats won't let that happen anymore.
So is that why 73% of the illegals arrested have no criminal record?
Well, it's true that millions and millions of illegal aliens don't have a criminal record other than they're illegal aliens. Yes, a small percentage compared to the majority are criminals, but they have to go too. And we were wise enough to try to get the criminals first. But the Democrats didn't like that because to them, every illegal alien is a potential voter.
Which is okay. I'm going to just say that's horseshit, and then I'm going to go to Mark because we should. Do we have Mark? Not yet. All right. I'm bored with this. This is the same.
Illegal aliens can't vote.
Yeah.
The Democrats are giving them a pathway to citizenship, and their kids will be able to vote in 18
Okay.
years.
Okay, in 18 frickin' years. That'll be in 2044.
Oh, but they started it decades ago. Yeah, the birthright citizenship started decades ago. So if you were an illegal alien 18 years ago, your kid can vote. And there are thousands and thousands, even millions of those. Enough to change any election.
Birthright citizenship was created to give newly freed enslaved people the right to be a citizen.
That's good. We should have that for newly freed enslaved people, but not for people that came over the border from Mexico. Thank you, Saint, for making my point.
I got to say that the percentage of Americans who do we have Mark? Looks like we might have Mark.
We have
I'm here.
Mark.
But
Go
the
ahead.
percentage of
Mark, go
Americans who aren't native born is roughly the same now as it was 120 years ago.
Absolutely not. It's the most it's ever been in the history of the country.
So, okay, if you want to say, yeah, it's 17 or 18% now compared to 16% in the year 1900, yeah, maybe, but
Since
that's
1965, we've let 60 million people come into this country from other countries. That's the most in history. 60
okay.
million.
We also have the biggest population in history. All right, I want to move on to Mark.
Okay, get ready to wrap up this particular show and everything like that.
Get louder.
Yeah, I'll get louder. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, cool. Couple of things. One, well, I had a friend that went to a food truck rodeo earlier today, and then my brother actually organized one for MS because he's got MS and everything along those lines. And he organized that yesterday on Saturday and everything. But I was just wondering how popular are food truck rodeos in California, and if there are any popular food trucks that you really enjoy, because he had a good following, and there was a lot of people that were there to support the fundraiser that was going on Saturday here in North Carolina, in a little small town called Butner. But I just wanted your take on the food trucks and if there's any popular food trucks that you really enjoy. So I don't know, is there any ones that you go to regularly, Cassidy, and any of the rest of the gang that are popular there in California?
I'm a fan of a good street taco, preferably from illegals.
That's how you know it's good.
I don't know that I'm a fan of food trucks because then you have to figure out a place to eat, and it's usually the wind's blowing, and you're wrestling with your burrito plus your other shit. And I like where you sit down in a restaurant and they bring you stuff, and
What about you,
I'm a
Lance and
baby.
Saint?
I'm a spoiled baby.
What about you, Lance and Saint? Any popular food trucks?
For vegetarians that care about their health, it's kind of a dangerous situation to eat a food truck. I will say this: since the inflation caused by the Biden administration, and since my business was shut down, caused by the Biden administration, the Gavin Newsom administration. I have had to curtail my eating at restaurants for the first time in my life, and and many of the people I know that had restaurants went out of business. So the food trucks are a good thing for Democrat administrations because they're cheaper to run than businesses, and they've destroyed the restaurant industry. This is the first time in my life that I can't afford to eat food or buy the food that I want to buy because of the inflation caused by Biden that never went down. So I wish I could eat at food trucks.
So yeah, there has been a huge price jump in restaurant prices. My wife and I used to be able to, before COVID, we used to be able to go out and get dinner for two for $30. Often tip included at some of the cheap joints we would go to, like Sharky's. Now our price point is $50, which I don't know, we're used to it now, but that would have been a crazy number 5 years ago. And
it's true, and it's because of the Democrats.
Well, it's because of the death of retail, at least partly, that it's better for restaurants when there's street traffic, when people are out on the street shopping for shit instead of at home shopping for shit. And it's hardest on, regular brick and mortar stores like frickin' Circuit City, but it's tough on restaurants too.
Well,
it's a mystery. It's a mystery to Rick why people don't go hang out at restaurants in the same way they used to, go to retail in the same way they used to, when the neighborhoods are overrun by drug addicts and homeless people.
Yeah,
and by the way, the drug addicts were being fed by drugs coming over the border and coming in boats across the Caribbean. So
Not
Trump
across
has,
the Caribbean. Those
yeah.
little cigarette boats could get, they wouldn't be able to get within 1,000 miles of the U.S. southern coast. They were going to Caribbean islands. They weren't going to the fucking U.S. when we blew them out of the water. That's horseshit. Also, they weren't
Trump was destroying drug runners and closed down the border. So there are fewer drug addicts. It's actually lowered drug addiction in the U.S. Thank you, Trump. Thank you for doing something to try to lower drug addiction in the U.S.
The downslope in drug ODs began 18 months before Trump became president. So he doesn't get all the credit for that. All right, are we done? Can we go home
We're
now?
almost done. I just had one quick thing. The food trucks, actually, a couple of them in North Carolina started as food trucks and then became brick and mortar restaurants. So they actually started as food trucks and then became brick and mortar restaurants. I know of at least 5 or 6 that did that here in the area. And there's actually a popular one. You'll love this, Lance. The title of this food truck court, because it's like got several food trucks all together, but it's a bridge that used to, trucks used to get stuck in it. So they call it the can opener. That bridge is called the can opener. So that's what that food truck area is called, is the can opener area, because there was many of those big bridges that would get stuck and everything along those lines. Just really quickly, then we're going to get to the commercials. Today was the anniversary of Galileo's trial in 1733. Because I was watching one of the other news reports and they were mentioning that was going on. So these crazy trials were going on even back then and everything. And really quickly, Cassidy, the other question I was going to ask you that is a very light question and everything is, Jamar Moore and Blair Underwood, are there any like these male superstars that are like your heartthrobs? Because I know a lot of times women will have these heartthrob guys, and those are some that some women like, and maybe there's some heartthrob women for the guys that are here. But are you a big fan of either Jamar Moore or Blair Underwood?
No, I don't know them, but I'm not yeah, right now I don't have anyone who's like a big superstar. That every now and then I have like someone. Right now I don't. I just like really talented people.
Fair enough. What about you, Rick and Lance? Any heartthrob
So
women?
it takes an exceptional, like mainstream person for me to be super attracted to him. I feel like that just being like working in entertainment is so exhausting that I imagine they'd just be, A, they wouldn't want me. And B, they must be just so fucking tired that they wouldn't be fun to hook up with. That, like, you look at, I've always looked at Ariana Grande as somebody who's probably just exhausted and it probably isn't horny at all because her schedule is like occupies 18 hours a day. Or you look at like Daniel Craig or Kumail Nanjiani, and I wonder about them. Like, do their spouses get a superhero benefit? When Daniel Craig, they trained, they did physical training to turn him into James Bond. The first shot of him as James Bond was him coming out of the water in a tiny little swimsuit, the way Ursula Andress came out of the water in the very first James Bond movie. And so he was really ripped. And I'm wondering if Rachel Weisz, his wife, was like, ooh, ha cha cha, this is, or if Daniel Craig just limped home, beat to shit from all the stunts he had to do, from working out 5 hours a day, that it was probably not fun at all to be with him. Ditto for Kumail Nanjiani. They turned him into a Marvel superhero. Now he's freaking jacked to a ridiculous point where it sometimes interferes with his characterization. Did his wife enjoy his jackness, or was he what he was being put through to get jacked made that he just came home and just fell asleep? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either and everything. Hey, Lance, I think you should hook up with either Salma Hayek or the very liberal Susan Sarandon.
Well, here's the thing. I have given this a lot of thought, and I know that there are women that are 10 plus. They're perfect. I've met them. I even may have dated once or twice. And I think that these women that you see in the movies or on magazines, in my life, I don't think I need that much beauty. I mean, I could live with a 9, an 8.5. As a matter of fact, as superficial as I am, I do think that brains outweigh looks if you can find a brilliant woman. But the truth is that I think if you were to go to a typical high school in America with 2,000 girls in it, you could probably find 100 that were as beautiful as the movie stars. You could probably find 20 at the very least. So my feeling is it's not that I don't love female beauty, it's that there are a lot of people that aren't movie stars that are just doctors and lawyers, and there are a lot of women out there, waitresses, that are gorgeous and not in the movies. See what I'm saying?
And also, there's a trend that like people have too much variety available. Like if you look at these dating shows like Love is Blind, where they cast a ton of attractive people, then they hook them up together, and then it all frickin' falls apart because people have too many other people to compare them to, and everybody has a frickin' spank bank. Like 100 years ago, you either got a boner for the person you were with or you went to whores. But now there's, an endless cornucopia of sexual stimulation outside of the person you're sleeping with, which I don't know, kind of feeds into what Lance is saying, that you don't need the most attractive person in the world because odds are you're not only thinking of that person when you're having sex with that person.
Yeah, we're getting ready to go to the commercials. Lance, to your point, because I was looking it up just for the fun of it, two of the biggest TikTok stars, if you type in like Latin American TikTok stars and everything, are actually doctors. They are actually doctors that are doing like health stuff and all along those lines. So they're giving like health advice, but they're got like millions of viewers because they're also attractive. So they're attractive and they're smart and they're TikTok influencers. They're like two of the biggest ones that were out there.
Well, I actually have an opinion on this. You can take an average person these days, an average woman, and with plastic surgery, which has gotten really sophisticated, you could make almost anybody beautiful. And it's not that expensive. So, it's not an issue like it was when in the 1960s when, there was nothing you could do.
Well, you just throw a
If
filter on, an
No, but I
internet.
mean, if I'll tell you what the greatest innovation. We talk about Elon Musk, we talk about the great, the Artemis project. I think the greatest innovation they have came out with is, you can give a woman a breast job where she loses no sensation in her nipples. See, when we were young, a woman that had a breast job would lose all sensation in her nipples. So it was horrifying. It was mutilating. She might look better, but she couldn't feel her breasts. Well, now they know how to avoid the nerves, so they lose no sensitivity and they have very large breasts. But that's an incredible innovation, and Elon Musk had nothing to do with it.
Yeah. I think that Cassidy is a natural beauty. And I don't think that she'd ever go into the knife. But what do I know and everything like that? But I don't think that you would ever go into the knife.
Elon Musk is nothing to scoff at in the breast area if you've seen him without his shirt on.
All right. Cassidy is a blueprint for plastic surgeons to work from, not for them to work on.
All right, with this nonsense, we should probably sign off. Thank you, everybody. Thanks to Cassidy. Thanks to Mark. Thanks to Saint. Thanks to Lance. Kind of thanks to me.
All right. Good night.
Good night.